Kirby Smart at Georgia. Really interesting dynamic here. On one sense, they seem to ever be on the precipice of winning the SEC national championship. They're always in the playoff hunt. They have been since after his first season. Famously, they were within an overtime period of winning a national championship in his second year in Athens. And that's as close as they've gotten. Granted, it's very hard to win a national championship, so stands to reason that's as close as a lot of teams would ever get, and a lot of them won't even get that close. Let me back up to last year. I thought James Coley, for those of you unaware, the offensive coordinator at Georgia last year, I thought he took what I consider a lot of undue criticism. And that's because Georgia's offense, according to most people's perspective, underachieved last year. I don't argue with you on that point. Where I did take a little bit of exception was everyone trying to, toss it on the shoulders of James Coley, just like they did Mike Bobo a generation ago. Now, one of your brethren in the SEC East are fairly excited about hiring Mike Bobo. You wanted to hire Mike Bobo again, by the way. A lot of you did this time, not this time last year, this last offseason. So James Coley last year, was he the problem there? Was there a big problem there? I don't think it was a huge problem, but listen, they underachieved, and I don't think that even the head coach at Georgia would argue that. Obviously, he's not arguing because he made changes. And so now Georgia fans, vast majority of you got what you wanted, and you got a new offensive coordinator in Todd Monken. Who is he? We got plenty of time to talk about that. You also join him at the hip with a transfer quarterback named Jamie Newman out of Wake Forest. I know a lot of you have shared and read that Pro Football Focus piece, and there were a lot of glowing reviews about Jamie Newman when he came to Athens by way of Wake Forest. And I'm with you on that. I'm excited to see him, too. I think probably he's a guy that, when put in the right system, at the right program, and surrounded with capable talent, probably a guy that could really pop this year. So you got what you wanted in that sense, that everyone says right now, and keep in mind, right now means before the first helmet's been put on for spring practice, going to be more explosive elements to the offense, going to throw the ball more, going to be more aggressive. We're going to, where have we heard this before, more properly utilize our weapons. In other words, we're going to properly leverage our recruiting. And so when we're sitting here on National Signing Day, and in the past we've seen George Pickens and Don Blaylock come in, and now this last signing day, we see Arian Smith come in. We see Jermaine Burton. They snatch him away from LSU at the last minute. Yeah, you got all those guys on campus, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't use them. So now the word is we're going to utilize that and leverage that talent properly in Athens. That's great. There are two camps forming right now as far as I can see it with Georgia. And when I say camps, I mean different schools of thought around Kirby Smart. I know this because I have found myself at times in both camps. Not quite sure where I'm falling. I'm going to take a little bit of a stance here, though. I'm going to be in Camp B. But first, let me tell you where Camp A is. Camp A thinks that Kirby Smart is who he is. Therefore, it doesn't really matter who he hires because ultimately those offensive game plans are decided by the head man, and they're endorsed by the head man. It's not like, and this is where I felt like James Coley was probably a little bit unjustly criticized last year. It's not like James Coley ever showed up to Sanford Stadium on a Saturday, whistled right on past Kirby Smart, went up to the booth and just called his game plan. Everything about what James Coley did last year was signed off on and endorsed by the head coach. Well, be that as it may, James Coley's out, Todd Monken's in. A lot of people would look at you and say, doesn't matter who's up there. Doesn't matter if the most revolutionary offensive mind in the history of the game's up there. Kirby Smart is going to limit them. He's going to jerk the reins on them because he's got a championship caliber defense, and he doesn't want to see his program go down the path of some of these other programs that have sold out offensively, and they put all their eggs in that basket, and then when it comes time to get a stop in a 48-41 game, they can't do it. That's what one camp would lead you to believe, and that doesn't matter who the personnel or the staff is and looks like, it's ultimately Kirby Smart's team, and the offense is always going to look the same. I understand that thinking, and initially I may have bought into that thinking. Here's why I'm leaning just a little bit to Camp B. Camp B is the offense is going to evolve this year because Kirby Smart's going to evolve this year. Now, you may think to yourself, a coach is who he is, but that's garbage. That's not always true. I think a lot of folks don't realize how young Kirby Smart is. A lot of folks, for that matter, don't realize how young a lot of these guys are. Gus Malzahn at Auburn, Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. The entire landscape of this sport has changed. You used to have to work your way up several rungs of a ladder to ever sniff a job like Georgia. Now, you just get Georgia in your lap as your first head coaching job. And I'm not telling you Smart didn't earn it, quite the opposite. But fact of the matter is, you and I both know if the year is 1980 instead of 2020, or 2016 as it were, that man is not putting on his training wheels, or rather taking them off at the University of Georgia, but things have changed. Ryan Day is enjoying this now. Lincoln Riley, like I said. Gus Malzahn, a brief stay at Arkansas State. He's now enjoying this at Auburn. And Kirby Smart's enjoying it at Georgia. Well, here's why I mention all these guys. Coaches, and the process in which coaches grow, evolve, learn, in some cases, very hard lessons, it hasn't changed. I don't care if salaries have changed. I don't care if the timetable on how quickly you can rise to one of these jobs has been expedited. You still got to learn lessons. You still got to learn who you are as a head coach. You still have to evolve and grow. Kirby Smart feels like he's been there forever. And sometimes you just feel like a coach is who he is. No. Here's how it used to work. The greats in this sport, the Nick Sabans, Urban Meyer. Take Saban and Meyer, for example. They learned hard lessons. They had to develop their identity as a head coach. The difference is they did it at places like Bowling Green or Utah or Toledo in front of about 4,500 people on a Saturday. I mean, in the crowd were parents of players, alumni, and degenerate gamblers. I mean, those basically were the people who were watching Toledo and Bowling Green football games when Saban and Meyer were at those stops respectively. So they learned tough lessons too, guys. They evolved their style too. It's just you didn't notice it because they weren't under any microscope. They weren't under any white-hot spotlight in front of 100K and a multi-million person viewing audience at home. There are no easy ways to learn those lessons for Kirby Smart. There is no easy way to grow out of the spotlight. But yeah, that doesn't change the fact that they still got to go through it, just like all the other guys went through it even before they enjoyed their success. And what I'm saying to you is, how can you know for sure that guy just is who he's always going to be as a head coach? He's not blind. He's not stupid. If you sat there and you watched the sport change, and you watched Alabama do what they've done, and Clemson do what they've done, and LSU do what they've done, he faced them. He faced LSU last year with a really good defense on the field, and Georgia didn't play half bad, and they were still, in the end, shredded. They were hurt by injury, but they were shredded. You don't think Kirby Smart, I don't care what he said at a press conference or to any reporters, you don't think he got back home and did a healthy inventory of his program and realized what the rest of us realize, and that is Georgia is ill-equipped right now. Even if they're healthy, they're ill-equipped to go through a stretch in Atlanta, semifinal national championship game, and deal with several teams like this. Of course, he realizes it. He's not blind. So here's what I'm asking. Could it be, I don't think what I'm about to suggest is radical, could it be that now, 5 years in, 6 years in, 7 years in, we're entering a stretch wherein Kirby Smart might evolve, and in turn, you see Georgia offensively evolve? That's where I'm falling right now, and that's actually what I expect to see from Georgia this year. Now, first things first, you got to open spring, and you got to get some positions figured out, and we got to see what Jamie Newman's all about at quarterback. Got to actually see what the offense will consist of, and what is a Georgia offense under Todd Monken? I don't know. But here's what I do know. The margin for error on this team has been far smaller than it should be, given the talent advantage that they have 9 times out of 10 when they take the field. I wrote down Notre Dame, Florida, Texas A&M, and Auburn. Those were all one-possession wins for Georgia last year. They lost against South Carolina. Half a dozen games on this schedule were one-possession games, either losing or winning last year, and I'm here to tell you they had significant, moderate to significant talent advantages in every one of these games. How do you maximize that talent? Well, you do just that. You maximize it by using it more. I don't think Georgia, and I think even Kirby Smart, in his heart of hearts understands this, utilized that talent properly enough last year. The thing about it is, you got to have the right weapons. I think, and most of you think, Georgia has the right weapons. At quarterback, most specifically, and then everywhere else around him, to do that. To be an offense that overnight flips a switch and becomes a juggernaut. They already have it defensively. Here's what I think the one caveat in Kirby Smart's mind is. I don't think he suggests, and I don't think he intends, to flip some radical switch and go from what Georgia was last year to all of a sudden being what Alabama is, or turning into Oklahoma. And the reason is he's watched Alabama, and even though Alabama hasn't fallen off, they're still in the top tier, he looks and he sees them losing an Iron Bowl 48-45. And he sees them repeatedly in the second half against LSU, trading punches but not able to get a stop, not even coming close to be able to get a stop, I don't think he ever wants to be there. So I think to a certain extent he understands we got to evolve offensively. He's never sacrificing championship caliber defensive play. He's not throwing that out the window. And so whatever a happy medium is, maybe 60-40 the other way, 70-30 the other way, I think there's an effort to do that. To be honest with you, I don't know if they understand where the pin in the map is that they want to get, but I do think there'll be concerted effort underway this year, this spring, this summer, and ultimately this fall to get there for Kirby Smart and Georgia.